workshop. Before we do so, I'd like to invite everybody to just please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So I guess with that being said, we're going to turn over the meeting to Ms. O'Connor. If you could just give us an update as to where we are and what we're doing tonight.
Sure, we have two topics for tonight. Oh, I turned it off, sorry. The first is the last of our expenditure side topics, that's elementary education. And then after that presentation, that'll be Ms. Ann Palmer. After that presentation, I'll talk about the revenue side of the budget, which matches up with the expenditure side. So, Ms. Palmer, Assistant Superintendent Palmer,
Thank you.
all yours.
And I got it. Do you want me to unmute?
No, you got it.
Okay. Good evening, Superintendent Lochner, Board of Education, esteemed colleagues, and community members out there in cyberspace today. I'm Ann Palmer. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Education, and it's a pleasure to be with you tonight to share our enrollment numbers, our staffing, and some of our innovations. I'm using the term innovations instead of programs because the last 2 years, I believe that we have all been innovative. We shut down in March of 2020, and we were thrust into the 21st century, and it forced us to look at how we operate and do business differently. And when you think about the word innovation, innovation is being creative, thinking outside the box, finding solutions that you may not have thought of before. And it involves being connected. I think over the last 2 years, we learned the importance of being connected to our families. I think the technology brought us closer together. I think it taught us a lot about our students and our families and our children. I had the luxury of presenting after Rhonda Young, the Assistant Superintendent of Special Services, and Wanda Ortiz Rivera, the Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education. We are all passionate and committed to getting our kids into the 21st century, preparing them for college and career. And tonight, I thought that I would, because it's public-facing, share some information with the public about the New York State standards and how we're going to reclaim our children. I think we all have a renewed spirit, and I think the Brentwood community is resilient, and we've proven that. And I am so honored to work with the most committed principals at the elementary level, assistant principals. I have a huge elementary leadership team, and it's every day from our guidance coordinator, our art, music, phys ed, and the team, the cabinet here. We're just committed to ensuring that our children move on and can choose a path that they choose, a future, post-secondary pursuits without remediation in college and even career. So I entitled it Destination College and Career for that reason. Over the last few years, we've done a lot of work district-wide in looking at what enables districts to succeed, what enables schools to surpass other schools. You know, what's the magic ingredient? We study leadership standards together. We've made goal attainment a goal. At our elementary and secondary leadership team meetings, we look at goal attainment as a system and what goes into that system. And so Transcend Education gives us 5 conditions that they say that if we nurture these conditions, just like an oak tree needs water and soil. If we nurture these conditions, we will thrive. And I started to think about Brentwood. And I said, you know what? We are one of those communities that that embodies these conditions, starting with conviction, a deep and sustaining belief in the importance of the work, starting from the superintendent and the Board of Education and the cabinet and down to our building leaders. We have clarity. We understand we're getting our guidance from the educational standards, and that's guiding our work. Capacity is the support of personnel, funding, and time required to successfully, design and implement innovations. Capacity is personnel, human capacity, but it's also we call it sweat equity. It's our time, and we want to build that capacity, and we want to build that instructional leadership. And then, of course, a coalition. It's the investment of a committed group of stakeholders who are helping the work become a sustained success. And, we have a strong coalition of people working behind the scenes and in our schools, investing in our children. And finally, it's a culture of norms and practices and expectations that we all have for ourselves and for what we expect our teachers to give to children on a regular basis. And we have positive energy, which I believe is the key to our success, is that we believe that we can, and we believe that our children can, and we're deeply committed to the work. So I just wanted to share these conditions, and I'm going to kind of talk about these conditions interchangeably as I also present to you our staffing and our budget and our enrollment numbers. And again, why reflect on these conditions? Because they can just help us self-assess. It's a new lens to look more deeply in. We could look at our grows and our glows and our growth edges. It helps us align on a common vision. And then the data that we collect, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, our team's reflections become a powerful tool to kind of guide our work and come up with ideas to improve our systems inside of our learning community. So I want to start with our 4-year enrollment numbers, and as you can see, we kind of fluctuate each year anywhere between 300 and 500 students. I'm looking, it's just cut off my side here. So I started with 2018-19. You see that we had 8,577 students. And now 21-22, 7,956 students at the elementary level. And we are projecting 6,624, but K numbers are not in yet, so you would probably add an extra 1,000 to that, looking at the numbers that are in East K and Pine Park currently. The next slide shows us our enrollment numbers starting in September. Every year we take our enrollment numbers in September 7th, 2021, and then 1 month later we look at them again on Beds Day. As you can see, in some places, kindergarten especially, we pick up some kids. 62 kids could be 2 additional classes that you pick up within a month. And then we look at our numbers from Beds Day, October 6th, and we look again on March 7th, and then you'll look at your increases. Southwest this year, we picked up two bilingual classrooms, 2 classrooms of 50 students and additional students across the grades there. So I am proud of my formula. I know Mr. Lochner makes fun of my formula, but that's because he's a math guru and he likes math. And I'm very proud of this because it keeps us all honest. It's transparent. It's consistent. When I crunch numbers and I'm unsure, I go to the formula and I go, yes, I was right. And my principals can go to the formula, and we can all have this formula so that we can be very transparent and that we can track enrollment changes and we can have consistency and we can make our class sizes equitable across our district, which we didn't always have equity, and it was no one's fault. It was just that there was no formula. So I'm proud of my formula, Mr. Lochner.
I'm very proud of your formula.
I'm going to go to the formula. So if you have a class size and of 30 is your max in grades 4 and 5, we're trying to keep our classes a little lower because we are coming out of a pandemic. So even if I went 4 under, if I had 130 students, I'd go to my formula and I would say, okay, I need five sections in that grade. But I want everyone to know that, the numbers, also there's nuance to creating schedules because we have kids with different needs, different demographics. So we have general education students, we have bilingual students, we have students with disabilities, we have inclusion classes. So for example, that 130, you might think it's only 5 classes, but it's really 5 plus 1 because the cap on an inclusion class, a CWC class, is 24. So you would only put 12 gen ed students and 12 special ed students in that classroom for an inclusive environment. So we have to take into consideration that. But what we've done is, over the last few years, is we've developed community schools for our special ed students. So our CWC classes currently are in Southwest Elementary School. They are in Laurel Park Elementary School. And so our pre-kindergarten ratio is 18-1, and we stay within that number, in that ratio. Kindergarten, the cap is 25. And here's the formula for first grade. We have one for second grade, third grade, and I showed you fourth and fifth initially. So the formula is good because it does ensure equity across our schools. So let's go to our schools. Southwest Elementary School is our largest elementary school with the enrollment of 1,022 students. We added 2 bilingual classes this year, from 2 to 4. There are 8 special education sections. I'm reading what's to the right of the bracket. In 2022-23, projected enrollment is 899 with kinder. We still need some more kinder coming in. It's noteworthy to mention that we're looking at enrollment and staffing and projections district-wide. So, for example, if you're looking at Southwest Elementary School and you look at the first column, you can look at your 21-22 enrolled all students. You'll see that, for example, in grade 1, there are currently 157 students. The expected enrollment is 167. We're going up 1 general ed class in grade 1 there. In grade 2, we're going up 1 gen ed and 1 bilingual. In grade 3, we're staying the same. In grade 4, we're reducing by 1 gen ed. And then in grade 5, we're staying the same. And the way you read those sections is the number of gen ed sections. Southwest has the CWC, and then there's the bilingual. And then we also have our special ed students in they have 9 special ed classrooms at Southwest Elementary. We have ungraded kindergarten, grade 1 ungraded. There's a 3-5 ungraded classroom there. And then we have 1 level 3 self-contained in all of the grades and 2 in grade 5. We had 2 in grade 4, but now we're rolling it up to grade 5. At Northeast Elementary School, the enrollment in grade 1 is 184 to 208. You can see in grade 1, we're going up 1 gen ed, another bilingual. Grade 2, we're going down 1 gen ed. Grade 3, we're going down 1 gen ed, but up 1 bilingual. In grade 4, we don't have any, staying the same. And in grade 5, we're reducing by 1. North Elementary, 858 with the enrollment projected is around 809. And the same, we're reducing 1 gen ed, going up to bilingual. Second grade, reducing by 1 gen ed, going up 1 bilingual. In third grade, he is going up, Mr. Morris is going up 1 gen ed classroom. In Twin Pines, Dr. Jackson is going up 2 bilingual classes, and there is a reduced sections of grade 3 and 5 in gen ed. In Oak Park, we are staying the same in grade 1, 2, and 3. We're going up 1 in grade 4, going down 1 in grade 5. At Loretta Park, we don't have any changes in grade 1. In grade 2, we have an additional, we're going up 1 general ed classroom, going down 1 in grade 3. Grade 4, we're going down 1, up 1 bilingual. At Laurel Park Elementary, grade 1, we're going up one bilingual, no changes in grade 2. We're going up 1 gen ed in grade 3, up 1 in bilingual in grade 3, and reducing 1 in grade 4. At Hemlock Park, we're waiting on our kinder numbers. Grade 1, we have an additional bilingual projected, and we are reducing by 1 gen ed in grade 2. Southeast Elementary, as you can see, we call that a wash. We're going up 1, down 1. So that's it. That's what we call, I taught Wanda that. That's a wash. And there aren't any projections for SWD at this time. Pine Park, we're waiting for our numbers to come in. And East K as well. Universal Pre-Kindergarten registration has begun. We currently have 295, well, let's start with 2019-20. We were at full capacity. Obviously, the pandemic set us a little back. Last year, we had about half, 183, a little more than half. This year, we have 295 students. We're climbing our way back, and hopefully in 22-23, we will be back to full capacity and welcome more students. At MDQ Academy, we have currently 142 full day and 36 half day. Family Service League, currently we have 198 full day students and 36 half day. If parents are watching tonight, all you have to do is call this number on the screen, 631-434-2301, and you will you can get an appointment, and someone will teach you how to enroll online. And all of this will be put up for families as well. I just want to add that, our building principals and our teachers welcome each year student teachers from a host of schools. I'm very proud of Brentwood. Again, I said it last year and I'll say it again. During the pandemic, many schools turned down student teachers. We didn't. We took them. We welcomed them with open arms, and they came into our schools and they learned. And I think that's indicative of our culture. We do have a welcome and affirming environment. So I just wanted to add that. I also want to thank you for, funding. We had three permanent subs at each of our schools, and that has helped us during the pandemic. It's helped us keep business as usual, especially in December and January when we had the Omicron virus again, and we had to shut down. These student teachers and perm subs help us. So I want to just talk to the parents tonight who are watching and educators, and just share, where does that clarity come from? Where does our vision come from? Well, it comes from standards, and we are doing all that we can to ensure that our children get a rigorous environment, a learning environment, and we want to help our teachers meet grade level standards. I'm going to go through a few of the slides so that I can share with families some of the new developments and the timeline that NYSED gives us. We have brand new New York State computer science and digital fluency standards, and I'll share a little bit about them as well. So starting with the next generation mathematics learning standards, if you look at 21-22, the state tests were canceled in 2020. Last year, the state administered the assessments again, but we obviously had reduced students taking it. This year is the first administration of the New York State grades 3 through 8 standards aligned to the next generation standards. Next June 2023 will be the first administration of the Algebra 1 regents aligned to the next generation standards. And then June 2024 will be the first administration of geometry. And then again in June 2025 it will be the first administration of the Algebra 2. So we are still building capacity and working diligently to develop plans and develop curriculum, tuning up our curriculum to ensure that our lessons and units are aligned to these standards. And this is the new science standards. June of 2022, upcoming, will be the last administration of the grade 4 standards aligned to 1996. In June of 2023, there will be no grade 4 science tests next year. These students will take the new science test in grade 5 in 2024, and the last administration of the grade 8 science test aligned to the 1996 standards. In spring of 2024, we'll have the first administration of the new elementary grade 5 and intermediate grade 8 science test. So they're giving us this gap year, to prepare teachers and students for these new assessments. And June 2025, it's interesting, they are going to have the first administration of biology, earth, and space science, which could be a new course that we could offer if we wanted to. Yep. ELA, English Language Arts. Again, this spring that our kids just took was the last administration of the grades 3 through 8 assessments. And spring 2023 next year will be the first administration of the 3 through 8 next gen, moving along until we give the first administration of the English region. So all of these tests 3 through 8 will be aligned to the new Regents exams. A new social studies framework was established in 2016. Our kids upcoming, Mr. Loshner sent a parent square message out about the new U.S. history and government test that's upcoming in June. And we also have brand new computer science and digital fluency standards. If you notice that we are July 2022 through August 2023 is a capacity building phase where we have to focus on curriculum and development, resource acquisition, and professional development. I'm proud to say that a group of stakeholders, central office administrators, Candace from the IT department, teachers, principals came together and we developed a plan that was due to BOCES, April 1st. We will be getting feedback from our plan, and based on that feedback, we will add it, revise it, and it's due to the state by June 1st. Ultimately, we were thrust into the 21st century in March of 2020. Our district has evolved. In 2020, were caught off guard. Our kids didn't all have devices. Some of our classrooms didn't have Aquas boards. Right now, I can say that we are moving full steam ahead. We are in such a better place than we were 2 years ago. I am thankful that our teachers gave it their all to try and work with the new technology. I want to compliment building administrators, central office, for really helping infuse technology into our classrooms. But I also do know and believe that we can't go back to pre-pandemic stages, that we are here now and we got to continue to evolve. And I believe that the plan that we're putting together is going to help us infuse technology into the classroom so that we can be innovative in the classroom. The goal is to teach our kids how to use digital tools to present, to research, to explore, to collaborate, to connect. And I think that's when you think about what it means to be college and career ready, it does mean being technologically literate. Our kids are digital natives. They are. They're much more savvy than we are. However, I do think that we as educators need to learn the best practices and the pedagogical skills so that we can use the technology in a way that accelerates learning. And I believe we can do that. We recently purchased some modules, Reimagining the Classroom Experience, that's helping teachers learn And I believe moving forward, with the addition of curriculum and instruction and following a roadmap and identifying what should be taught to children at each grade, we'll be able to get there. The state does give us a science framework, and they give us some options. So if you look on the left side, figure 8.6 gives you options for implementing computer science in school districts. They give you elementary school implementation examples, middle school examples, high school examples. One being you can integrate into the general classroom, which we know we want to do. You can integrate into an existing special, have media arts, computer lab as a separate course, or you can have an independent special similar to science, music, art, kindergarten through grade 5. If you look to the right, what they do is they give you these different packages. You can have the basic, the moderate, the broad and deep exposure. I believe that we should go somewhere between moderate and broad and deep, so that we can not only integrate it into the classroom, but we can teach our children and our teachers simultaneously the skills necessary to succeed in this new digital world. Additionally, we have New York State K-12 Phys Ed, brand new standards in physical education. 2 years ago, before the pandemic, I worked with Phys Ed teachers, and we began to create units of study. And there are new health standards that really are aligned to health education. We are beginning to work and look at the curriculum that we can bring in elementary schools to familiarize our children with the requirements for health ed, including growth and development, the social and emotional learning skills that they need to be successful adults. Special area I'm putting up to make the board aware of our progress and how we have been giving more art and music over the years. In 2018, 2019, we were, because of fiscal responsibilities and to be fiscally responsible, we had to cut art and music in 2018-19, but through the years, we have begun to give more art and music. One thing that I do want to point out is the fragmentation. Throughout the years, if you notice, we'd have 30 minutes every other week in kindergarten, for example, and then in grades 1 through 4, you'd have 45 minutes every other week. In art, in music, you'd have 30 minutes one time per week. Let's say in 2019-20, in grade 5, it was 30 minutes 2 times per week. But then Phys Ed was 40 minutes. So that fragmentation causes difficulty to schedule, and it does make it difficult for building principals to create common planning time for teachers. It also makes it more difficult to preserve instructional time and identify the places in your day when you're going to push in your TAs to provide that extra support for small group instruction. So the goal is to give our kids more art, music, and phys ed, because we know that if you have more art, music, and phys ed, you're going to enrich their lives. And research shows that kids who get more special areas, they call them the encores, do well and better academically. So the goal will be to get us all on the same page as far as scheduling goes, scheduling to enhance student achievement, but also give our children more art and music. I'm asking for 2 more in art, 2 more music teachers, and 3 more phys ed educators to ensure that all children get 40 minutes of art according to the schedule. So K-5 will get 40 minutes one time per week of art. Music K-4 will get 40 minutes one time per week. Grade 5 will get music 40 minutes 2 times per week, plus chorus. And I just found out today, Angel told me that that would also give 4th and 5th grade chorus also one time per week. And phys ed we will go up to 40 minutes 2 times per week. In the art classes, we're going to add a literacy component to art. The extra 10 minutes, the art teachers will read to the children, and then they will create a culminating kind of activity that will come from the additional reading. And in music, we'd like to add, especially at the primary level, some movement and dance and rhythm inside of the music classroom. So just to sum up some of the work ahead, I believe that educators set the path for transformation. What we've already begun to do is strengthen the pre-K through 3rd grade pipeline, working closely with our principals from Shepherd's Gate, MDQ, and Family Service League, working closely with them. We've had training there this year on behavior, positive behavior intervention supports, and we're looking at, we're strengthening our pre-K curriculum. We obviously, as I said, we need to work this summer to work with groups of teachers and administrators to align our curriculum to the new standards so that we can meet these expectations and create rigorous environments. If teachers teach to the standards and they understand the standards, they will develop the skills. Also, we have already taken additional steps to ensure that our teachers have all the resources. We have a beautiful K-8 Elevate Science program. We have innovative Go Math with digital pathways attached to it. We adopted a new skill strand that was rated by Education Reports as being #1 in our primary level. We bought new Fountas and Pinnell level libraries in our classrooms. So we've added a tremendous amount of resources in the last 2 years. I also want to talk a little bit about how we need to consider how we measure success. So what we've begun to do is, and what I think we should do moving forward, is develop problem-based, project-based units of study so that we're not teaching to the test, but we're preparing children for the test in an innovative way so that whatever you put in front of them, they will be ready to do. And of course, we're shoring up and memorializing our AIS and RTI processes at the district level. I want to thank the Board of Education for restoring our math and our reading consultants. They are working with small groups of kids daily. You can go into any school and see them pulling small groups, and it is making all the difference. And again, what we're doing here in Brentwood is we're going to be developing more extended school day opportunities at the building level, at the elementary level. Right now, there are a myriad of before and after school programs. Our teachers are meeting kids where they are. There's yoga, there's music, there's reading, math. We also have the Saturday Academy. Our guidance counselors, social workers are pulling small groups of kids during the day. The additional PPS staff is making all the difference. I see it in the classrooms, my principals see it, so I want to thank you for adding that. I know that that was something that you knew we needed and you provided. A few years ago, if you remember, when I showed this chart, there were a lot of holes and blanks in this chart. We're filling up, as you can see. We currently have 6 full-time guidance counselors in our schools. If you notice, we have 10 psychologists, and we have 16 social workers. So we do have much more academic and clinical support in our schools. I am looking to perhaps add 1 more guidance counselor. I think that adding 1 more will give the large schools like North Elementary a full-time and give more support to our kindergarten center, East K and Pine Park. They are struggling with behaviors, and I just think it's because we've been shut down, and I think that we need a little extra attention to children who may not have been in a formal education setting. Right now, we have 10 FTEs in psychology, but if you look at Loretta Park, Loretta Park, Northeast and Twin Pines and Loretta Park, 2 days a week. That's because the psychologist is doing district evaluations, so not necessarily there as much as we would like them to be. And right now, I believe Rhonda Young has put in for an additional social worker to fill the gap at North Elementary. I'm proud of the Brentwood Youth Mentoring Program that we started here. I want to thank Colonel Kalin and the National Honor Society, Ms. Rivas and Ms. Ceriola, and all of our guidance counselors. It's a success. We actually have our ROTC and National Honor Society kids, and they go down to the elementary schools, and they're mentoring our children weekly. We bus our high school kids over, and this is an example of a celebration that we had last year. Last year, we were the only school district on Long Island to actually hold the program. We held it virtually. And this was the final celebration where they actually got to meet each other in person after a long year of virtual mentoring. Extended school day programs, we have another 5-week Saturday Academy that we started, very successful. Our kids are getting a full day, they're getting Phys Ed, they're getting science, they're getting ELA, math, and they're getting lunch. We also are educating families. I love that picture of the father with his son. He was in our Saturday Parent University, and when he was leaving with his brochure, he saw his son eating lunch, and we snapped a picture. So we are offering more programs to connect our children and our families to our schools and strengthen that homeschool connection. And these are just some pictures from the year. And the infusion of technology and all of the innovative things that we're doing here. So just to sum up, we have 16 general education teachers retiring in the district. The general ed enrollment reduction was 8 sections, reduced by 8. We need 13 teachers, 1 school counselor. The total will be 21 elementary classroom plus 1 counselor. The addition of the enrichment staff to give us the 40 minutes across the board is 2 art, 2 music, 3 phys ed. I am asking for a library media specialist, 1 in each elementary school, so that specialist can work with children and with staff. And we would like to have a BOCES shared data expert. We currently have that expert 2 days a week, and we will need her 5 days a week to support our data moving forward and to monitor our growth, tracking it across our schools. We need, and I'm asking for an academic instructional technology facilitator. We currently have 1. If we were to add 2 more, those 2 instructional facilitators could work across our elementary, middle school, and high schools. And we will also need a science, as you saw, the new science standards warrant an educator in the curriculum office to support the development of new curriculum aligned to the next generation standards. Additionally, if you saw the numbers, I am asking for an assistant principal at Laurel Park. Laurel Park has about 25% special education, and it is comparable to the numbers at Hemlock Park. Last year, an assistant principal was hired at Hemlock Park, and I believe it's making all the difference. I think that Laurel Park, Eric Snell would do fabulous work there with the help of another administrator in that building. Additionally, an assistant athletic director for PE and health. We have brand new health standards across our schools, and we do need to develop a health curriculum at the elementary level, and of course, align our middle school and high school health standards to new curriculum. And then, of course, We would need an academic instructional administrator to support the library media specialists and oversee that curriculum and work closely with Ms. Chang, the coordinator of instructional technology. So I thank you for your time this evening, and I'm going to spread the curtain. I just want to share that Miss Jackalone taught us how to do that. She teaches the children how to do that, and they love it. I would be remiss if I didn't thank all of the principals and my team and the teachers out there, the community, my partners here tonight, curriculum coordinators, who really, help me every day. Do the good work that we're doing. We really are a strong coalition, a committed, dedicated group of people, and I'm excited to be here with you tonight. Thank you.
First, thank you so much, Ms. Palmer, for such a thorough presentation. I'm sure that everybody is so delighted that we're able to even talk about all these innovative ideas that you're bringing to the table. I mean, we've been suffering for so many years, and we knew that these things were things that we wanted to do, but not necessarily afford to do. So thank you so much for this presentation. I know that there were some board members that had some questions.
Sure.
So I would like to open it up to the board members before I ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
I guess there was a question about balancing the needs of the children in the district. I believe that you went over them specifically in terms of what are we doing in terms of academic enhancements, meeting those kids that had suffered through the pandemic. I do believe that you answered all of those questions, but take some time if you want to expand and maybe add a little more detail in
Sure.
terms of all those after school, before school, and weekend programs.
Oh, sure. For starters, right now, we have a Super Saturday Academy. The children, this is dedicated to children in grades 4 and 5. It ran for 5 weeks in the fall, it ran in 5 weeks in the spring. The children come in the morning, there's a schedule for them. We have 4th and 5th grade, they take an English language arts in the morning. We have a program that is a Cell Readers program. It's a social emotional learning program. The kids live vicariously through literature. It begins with an interactive read aloud, and then it's connected to themes of belonging, confidence, kindness, courage, all of the social emotional learning strengths that we want our kids to graduate with. They read books, they talk about it, they read closely. They write about it, they draw about it. They move from English language arts to a STEAM block where you saw they were building solar robots, and they read the directions. The teachers help them read the manuals. So many of them, for the first time, it was the first time getting a solar robot kit. They learn a little bit about solar energy, hydro energy. They're planting flowers. They're reading a little bit about it. They're writing about it. They're talking about it. It's tech-free. The Saturday Academy, for the most part, is tech-free because it's about the connection. They also go to lunch, and they also have Phys Ed. There's 30 minutes of physical education, and at that academy, we are offering from 9:15 until 11 o'clock, we do a Saturday Academy with a different topic for parents each week. Last week, we did share the state assessments with families. We shared the examples from the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade assessment. If parents wanted to see the test, we shared those released items with families. We did one topic on behavior. We did 1 week on internet safety. So that's one example of an extended school day program. But at the building level, we have small group guided reading before and after school. We purchased brand new Fountas and Pinnell leveled libraries. They're gorgeous libraries, and our teachers are using the benchmark assessment system to code our students. Basically, it's a miscue analysis. They code our students and they identify a child's instructional reading level, and they pull small groups of children. They understand the characteristics of text. then they look at the children that are in front of them, and ultimately they guide them through reading, taking data and notes, conference notes throughout. We also have guided math workshops for children after school, before and after school. Teachers are using a combination of the interventions that come that are afforded to us inside of Go Math. We also purchased iReady. The district bought ELA iReady Math and iReady Reading, so the teachers are able to pull reports regularly and drill down to specific skills. So for example, in ELA, there are 5 domains. They can look at the child, how is the child doing in phonics, how is the child doing in comprehension, in vocabulary, disciplinary reading. Let's say when the server serves up passages in, let's say, science or social studies, how is the student doing with those passages? And then they get reports for what Carlos can do well and where Carlos still needs to grow. And so from those reports, the teachers can use the intervention tools that come with it to create small group instruction and meet kids where they are. And a lot of our reading consultants at the building level and math consultants use that data to inform their instructions. So these computer adaptive literacy programs and numeracy programs meet kids where they are, but also affords us the opportunity to differentiate the instruction and then monitor growth over time. And that's going to be the key in the next 2 years, is to look at our growth and look to see that our children are growing as predicted. Each child, for example, gets a target, like they have to make their typical growth, and each child is individual. So it depends on where I land on the computer. So I might have to grow 27 points because maybe I'm further behind, but a child who might be already knocking on proficiency's door might not need as many points, but still nevertheless has to grow. So we're able to use these tools now at our disposal, at our fingertips, to really help kids. I remember years ago when I was a high school English teacher, I couldn't pinpoint, why is this child not able to read? What is it? What's the issue? Is it a phonics issue? Is it comprehension? Is it processing? What is the problem here? So even with math, I think that, it drills down to each individual domain so that a teacher can say, wow, this kid's really struggling with fractions, percentages, so that the teacher knows what to do and where to start. It's similar, it's an item analysis that they get regularly. So we're using that data to help us create small groups of instruction inside the classroom and outside. And we will do that in our summer program too. We will be able to give each teacher, we have our curriculum coordinators here tonight, Trish and Dion, will be able to pull reports so that we can give each teacher who is teaching the program a report on each kid. It's almost like we profile them, so we can identify their strengths and their weaknesses, and we can really hone in on what it is that they need. When you look at currently children who take an SAT exam, you can buy an item analysis, and this way you don't have to study the entire test. It'll just let you know, you struggled with reading science topics. Any passage that had to do with science, you struggled with. So we have technology at our disposal right now to really help us, help kids improve, and even help parents understand their children's strengths and weaknesses as well.
Thank you for that. So I guess this leads me to the other question, and it's something that I think that we brought to the table years ago, and I think it was prior to you actually becoming the assistant sup for elementary. I thought the district wasn't completely aligned. Like we had different buildings, kind of like each building worked in kind of their own separate island. So what are you doing to ensure that all of this is aligned across the district? This concept, how are you ensuring that this is the model for all of the elementary schools, and how are we doing with that?
Well, I can tell you that we have monthly meetings with the elementary principals and the assistant principals, and they are a committed and dedicated group of educators they believe in these programs. I'd welcome you to come into any of our schools, and you will find that small group instruction is happening using our guided reading libraries. You will find this continuity and uniformity across our schools. We're all using Elevate Science. We're using Go Math. The core knowledge skill strand, you can go into our primary classrooms during that block and see the children, the teachers implementing the skills strand. We're committed to it. The principals are committed to it, and we have pacing guides and curriculum, and we're actually refining it, and we're putting it all up on our website in the next few months. But we've been tuning up our curriculum. We never stop. We have to continue to evolve and grow.
That's great.
Any questions?
I have,
Paul has a question.
I had mentioned this before. What are we doing for our kindergarten children that are coming in with this large learning gap in language, behavior issues, and it's just specifically Pine Park at East Kindergarten?
Well, I could tell you this year, we actually made behavior, working with teachers to create preventative, proactive classrooms. We providing them with professional learning, positive-based intervention supports. We just recently, as Rhonda has Kimberly Clark, just hired Kimberly Clark. I'm working closely with Kimberly. We provided teachers at our UPK centers and our kindergarten centers, and we have 4 cohorts right now at Twin Pines, Southeast, Northeast, and is it Hemlock Park? Hemlock Park. We've begun to work with teachers and train them in how to mitigate these challenging behaviors. And very often I will tell you that a strong core instruction, an engaging core, helps mitigate, challenging behaviors. When kids are engaged, when we give classroom teachers manipulatives to use inside of the classroom, when we use technology, smart boards, and you're reading aloud to kids and they're on the carpet and they can see this image and it's blown up, and we're giving them the procedures that they need to ask critical thinking and analytical questions. Those questions are in the anthology, of the guide, so that they can require that kids turn and talk, draw, write about what they're reading. So we're strengthening the core. We're also, I think what we need to do next year moving forward is, if we could replicate what we're doing in the Saturday Academy, is offer some more academies for parents, Parent University, and begin to teach our parents how to also apply some of these strategies that our teachers are applying in the classroom. So we could offer some more in that area.
What would you call that again? I'm sorry.
Well, positive behavior instructional supports, PBIS, and it's basically an acronym for safe, kind, and help. Safe, kind, help. Are you doing things safely? Are you being kind, and are you helping? And it's a way to teach teachers how to use that to change students' behavior, make them feel good about themselves, and give them positive behavior intervention supports. Positive behavior.
I like the idea of having parents involved also.
Yeah,
That's
because
a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's terrific.
so it's PBIS, a strong PBIS, and we're working with actually Long Island University, partnering with them. That's how we're getting the professional learning. We're getting it from them. We're not paying for it. We're getting it through a grant. We also, the Saturday Academy is being paid for right now through a 5-year grant.
Thank you.
What are we doing in regards to social emotional health for students? Do you think that we will eventually get into like dance classes and dance? Are we ever
start that, or, I mean, I've seen
Well,
it.
I know, I can tell you that Angel is super excited about the
Salsa,
40
yeah.
minutes of music, Mr. Perez. We talked about, the extra 10 minutes. You can add dance, rhythm, music, especially in K2. You can add, like I said, the literacy component to art would be so powerful. And, I mean, the way to increase literacy is volume, right? We want voluminous reading. We want kids to be reading inside of the classroom. We want them to read in art. We want them to read outside of the school day. We want them to read on Saturday afternoon. So we're creating, I think, enriching before and after school environments. Social emotional learning, the extra staff, the extra guidance counselors, the extra psychologists, the extra social workers. I think they're doing a tremendous job to counsel and work with small groups of children. As behaviors arise in a classroom teacher can go to someone now and say, this kid is struggling. Can you help this child? And so the more counseling that children get, the better off they're going to be as well.
You think that we'll eventually get into like sports after school for elementary, or
I would love to. I would love to add sports, Maria. I would love to add sports after school. We
We
talked a
are
little
exploring.
bit about,
Right.
about getting some transportation. I know my
Transportation is what it
principals
is.
are like, if you give us some transportation home,
Yeah.
after school, we could add, sports after
Running.
school.
We are looking at that, Maria.
Yes.
The transportation for elementary schools, even if it's on an abbreviated schedule, once a week, twice a week, quite possibly, then we could have extended extra help, as well as sports, clubs, activities, because we know that that's probably the reason that some kids can't stay after school because of a transportation issue. So we are exploring that option. And to get about dance, we actually, the secondary, when Ms. Ortiz presented, we are actually bringing dance in as an elective on the secondary level. So we're really excited about that course.
Yeah.
That will be under the Phys Ed. It will be an elective under Phys Ed.
Like some competition going on here between schools and.
Yeah, no, we're really doing some exciting things.
So I just had one more question, and first let me compliment you on the formula-driven staffing model for consistency.
I knew he was going to come back to that.
Okay, so
There's no
listen,
doubt.
so I'm not a mathematician. I think it's fabulous. I love it. I'm sure that Mr. Lochner
I do love it. We
agrees.
joke around about it.
And this is just in terms of, being a sort of numbers person. I like what I see here, and I know that, years ago, we were dealing with something through the audit committee in terms of, trying to project something that would provide the consistency. This seems to answer all of those concerns. And class size equity across the district and within the building, it's big.
It is.
It really is.
And from classroom to classroom also,
Yep,
right? In the same school,
yep,
at the same grade.
yep.
Now, if I could say, Mr. Feliciano, Ms. Palmer took that audit to heart and has really spent the last 3 or 4 years carefully going over, every single year, goes over the numbers very carefully, takes it very seriously. It's really been the first time over the last 3 or 4 years that the elementary division has looked this closely at numbers to ensure that there is equity across grade level, across schools, and just didn't willy-nilly say, let's hire somebody retired in the second grade, Hemlock Park, let's just hire another one. Ms. Palmer takes it very seriously, going through the numbers, even though it's very uncomfortable for her. I think she's actually.
I like my formula because I say to myself 5 and I go to the formula, I'm like, yes, I did it.
So
I will say though that, the reason to do it also is that you can take from Peter and give to Paul. You can be fiscally responsible. If you reduce sections, but fairly, and there's still equity and you don't have a large class size, then you can take that money and get more art. get more music, get more phys ed. So
Which is
there's a
what we've been doing.
reason to do it. And I think that everyone understands that finances and that you have to be responsible. And if you can find, we do it on our house, right? We won't, okay, I won't buy those shoes because I want to go out to dinner tonight. We bargain with ourselves. So I think that we have to look at this in the same way.
And that's all the reasons why I wanted to compliment you on this, because I know that this was a work in progress. This was something that, I think has been, to Mr. Lotion's point, 3 or 4 years in the making. And to see that this has come to fruition is just so satisfying, because I echo everything that you say in terms of we're trying to use our resources wisely so that we can, not to bank the money, but so we can buy some other resources that we might need. So having something in this place, I think that you've set a great precedent for everyone to come, right, in this position and for the district. I know that it's secondary is a little different or a lot different, but what I see here is just really, really wonderful. So thank you for that, and I hope that, any discomfort that you may have felt, all right? Any discomfort that you may have felt in terms of what it was that we were talking about now shines through all the work that you provided. So again, I'm very, very appreciative. Mr. Como?
Yeah, Andy Como. Can you project with your formula how long it would be for us to get a music and art teacher in each of the elementary schools?
With the formula, can I project? No, but I can do the math and say how many sections I have and divide by the 40 minutes and then come up with number of sections that I will need. Yes, I can do that. But I do that alone, and first thing in the morning when I wake up and I'm not tired.
But Andy, we do have dedicated art and music teachers in each of the schools.
No, I mean for the whole day. Not a teacher bouncing around from 2 to 3 schools.
Oh, no.
No, we
don't have that.
We don't have that.
As much, and if we do, it's only 2. We've cut down on that. They go to 2 schools. They can be split between 2 schools. There are some guidelines, rules for travelers, et cetera.
Yeah, there are certain travelers, but every school does have a dedicated art and music and multiple phys ed teachers. However, some, do overlap and will have to travel to 2 schools. But every school does have at least.
We're going to be working towards that.
Well, it's as Ms. Palmer said, it's really about the numbers. It's
That's
numbers.
What I'm about the formula.
Right. Well, that's why she'll figure out, how many music teachers you might need, at Hemlock Park or Twin Pines, and she'll come up with whether it's 2 or 3, in conjunction with the coordinators, and that's how many we'll put in that school. And sometimes, we will have to travel a music teacher to another school to cover 2 schools.
And I have one other question.
Sure.
In reference to the elementary enrollments. All right. Do you have a projection on what we're looking at coming into the district?
Yes, I do, and I'll show you where it is. See the brackets on the right-hand side? So you see Oak Park, 21 enrollment, and projected.
Okay. Because, as everybody here knows, we're going to get bombed. We're going to get a lot of students over the next 2 to 3 years.
I also want to thank Lisa Landry in eSchool for helping me. She pulls reports and helps me look at the reports, and she does a great job. I want to thank, the elementary principals, assistant principals, the entire team, the curriculum coordinators. They make me look good. They help
Yeah.
me.
No, thank you. And I just wanted to follow up one more question. So this idea, right, that we're talking about also assists you in terms of, the year-to-year projections, right, in terms of your staffing. How are we doing with blends? Because I know that was something that we
Sure.
we were focused on that. I know it was a non-issue because of COVID, the kids were home.
We don't really have many blends anymore. If we do, they do return to their home school the following year. But the one thing that I can say I do here, and I was talking to Mr. Lochner about, is I'm able to see where there's some wiggle room, right? Because if you look at the formula, you might be at the high
Yes.
end of the formula or the low end of the formula.
Yep.
And you can't go up or you can't go down, because then you'll be over or under. But we are able to see, and I was talking to Wanda about sharing this with even, registration. You can see where there's room, but for the most part, there is room, there's space in our classrooms, because we are committed also now for the next couple of years to not pack our classes too
Yeah.
much, because we do have to come out of this pandemic, right? And other school districts do have smaller class sizes. So it is important, especially in K-2, to keep the class sizes a little smaller, especially if you want small group instruction. If you want that personalized education and you want our teachers to pull small groups, it's hard to do it when you have 30 kids and they're at different grade, having 6 different reading groups. That's tough. And then especially guided math too. So there's some room, so we don't have really that blend issue. I mean, we do blend out from Southeast bilingual kids to North Elementary. North Elementary takes some bilingual blends, but they stay at North Elementary. So then they have a community school.
That's great.
And with special ed, I want to say, over the last few years, worked closely with first Kim Fossey and now Rhonda. If you notice, our special ed children stay in one school. They deserve that. They shouldn't bounce around. We should make room for kids. And, I know that Patrick and Dr. Kriegel and Eric Snell and Hemlock Park, so that's where we have our special ed. And if you notice, we have more psychologists there now. So we are really working smart. We see the demographic, we're looking at our schools, and this way we're able to push in and lean into where we need to based on what we're seeing in these numbers, based on enrollment numbers and even the demographic.
Yeah, that was a major initiative of ours a few years back, and that is to ensure that these programs stayed in the same school. Because prior to this cabinet, what happened was in special education, for example, you might be in one school from kindergarten, first grade, then you transfer to another school, third and fourth grade, and then you're actually back in fifth grade.
And also Oak Park, they have a large population of special education, and Ms. Cattendeller and Ms. Hill, are doing a tremendous job, and the teachers there as well. So, there's a commitment there.
On behalf of the entire board, thank you for all of your efforts. Thank you and your team for all of your efforts. I know that we are coming out of a really rough time, but, everything that you've done prior to that, added to the stuff that we did during the pandemic, was really remarkable. And I want to just, again, tell you how much we appreciate it. I think your presentation was incredibly thorough. I'm excited about what it is that's coming for Brentwood. We keep talking about, the future, and the future's now. It's here, and everything that you've presented. So thank you again. On behalf of the entire Board of Education for everything.
Thank you.
If I could, Feliciano, I have to thank Ms. Palmer, as I thanked all of the other presenters. Ms. Palmer is just an incredible woman. She eats, sleeps, and drinks Brentwood. I do believe she wakes up at 2 or 3 in the morning thinking of what she's going to do the next day. Her and the entire cabinet, they work an incredible amount of hours per week. It is not a 40-hour week. It's not a 50-hour week. I'm not even sure it's a 60-hour week. They put in a tremendous amount of time for the Brentwood community. And just takes every job that she undertakes, she takes with a level of seriousness that I think is outstanding. She really does care tremendously about instruction and pedagogy. and spends an inordinate amount of time making sure our kids are receiving the best instruction in the class, and she'll move mountains to ensure that. Believes in professional development, believes in her teachers and the administrators, and, works to improve them on a daily basis. It's really wonderful to see how hard she works, and I'm very lucky. And she does have a great team. We have Dion and Trish here who, do support. It's just really, it's a constant communication. She does not work in isolation. She works closely with Wanda and Rhonda, and, will undertake any job to improve Brentwood. It's really.
You should come
really
to
fun.
the elementary schools. I know you have, but come on in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I know that we have a second part to this. I think this is all you, Ms. O'Connor?
Yes, the second part is our revenue budget, and we normally save that till the end of our budget development meeting, so we have our final numbers from the state. The state's budget is due April 1st. If you've been following that, unfortunately, they did not have an on-time budget this year, so we don't have our final numbers. I did see a news blast or something saying that they possibly reached a tentative deal today, but I don't have any of those details. So what I'm going to present tonight is numbers from the governor's budget. So just keep that in mind, that those numbers may very well change. And I hope to get that if they truly have a tentative deal within the next few days. We should have those numbers. So I will put up the presentation. Okay, so tonight, some of the things we're going to talk about, we're going to start off with a formula that the state put together. It's a little bit different than Ann's formula.
This one no one understands completely. They kind of make it up.
So we'll go over that, the tax levy limit calculation and all the many formulas involved. We'll look at foundation aid and state aid. Again, that's based on the governor's budget. We don't have the final numbers right now. We'll talk a little bit about debt service and then capital projects. So to jump right into the tax levy cap worksheet, what we do is we start with our total levy from the current school year, 21-22. That's $111 million. We did not have any excess levy added in here for the current year, so our total levy this year is the $111 million. We then multiply that by a tax-based growth factor that is given to us by the Office of Real Property Tax Services. You can see it's well less than 1% this year, 0.3. So we multiply the $111 million times the 0.3, and we get the adjusted tax levy subtotal of just under $112 million. We add in our base year pilot payments. A pilot payment is a payment in lieu of taxes, so if the town or the county wants to increase business in the community, they invite those businesses in, and as an incentive to get them, they'll lower a tax payment and they'll give them something called a pilot payment, so a payment in lieu of taxes. So for the current school year, we have $7.5 million in pilot payments for various companies throughout the district. We then look at our capital expense net of aid, so what we pay out in debt service to fund our current capital work minus what we get back in our building aid. And that costs us $641,000 per year. And that's not only the capital projects that we're doing within Brentwood. We also have to factor in our component BOCES, so Eastern Suffolk BOCES capital projects that they're doing, our share of that, because we fund the local BOCES. So that includes not only our costs, but Eastern Suffolk BOCES as well. We then go to, if I took that $119 million, which was the 112 almost, plus the $7 million in pilot payments, and subtract the $641,000, That's how I got to that first number on top, 118.8 million. Then we look at our allowable levy growth factor, which is based on CPI or 2%, whichever is lower. So this year, 1.02, we're multiplying it by 2%. The CPI is actually 4.7%, but because the 2% is lower, we multiply it, we increase it by the 2%. So the 118 million times 2%, or increased by 2%, is 121 million. We then have to subtract out the base year pilot receivables, the budget year, excuse me. So what do we expect to get in pilots, that payment in lieu of tax for the following school year? And I work with the town assessor, the county assessor, to get the numbers there, or the IDAs, really. So once we subtract out the pilot payments we expect to get the following year, we're down to 113 million. We have eligible carryover, however, from the previous year, or the current year, really, 21-22, that's going to carry over into the following year. And that's because in the current year, we did not increase the levy. We were allowed to increase the levy by about 3.5 million. We didn't, so we have an eligible carryover. The way that works is you can take the lesser of how much you didn't levy last year, so that 3.5 million, or 1.5% of the current levy. So that's less, so we get to add back 1.7 million, not the full 3.5 million that we didn't levy. When I add that back in, the tax levy limit before exclusions, we're almost done, I know it's quite a formula. We're at $115 million, or an increase of 3.42%. Then we have to look at the budget year exclusions. We looked at the capital expenditures net of aid of $641,000 current year. Next year, that's expected to go down to $252,000. That's because some of our debt within the school district had dropped off the debt service schedule. We finished paying it off. We won't have to pay it next year. So when we finalize our conclusion on line V of the formula, we're at our allowable levy limit for the following school year, 22-23, is $115,636,845, or an increase of 3.65%. And we could levy that much, increase the levy by that much, with a simple majority of the vote. We will not need a supermajority or 60% or more. Now, just because we can levy up to that amount doesn't mean that we will. What the superintendent and I are recommending is a 0% levy, just like we did this year. And we can do that, well, before we get to that, let's look at our levy trend. I thought this was, when I thought about how we've been levying in the past compared to how we were able to levy. So what our allowable levy limit was over the past 4 years, projected into next year, and what we actually levied. And if we look at the chart, the top line in blue is what we were allowed to levy each year, somewhere between 3.5–4% because of the exclusions involved, CPI. But what we actually levied was 1% in 1920, although we could have been around 4%. Yeah. Actually, that was the year, it was 4.03, and then we came in at 1.03.
Exactly, yeah.
2021, again, it was well up in the 3%, so we came in at 2.5% that year. Current year, we were allowed to levy over 3%, we were at 0. And for the following year, we're allowed to levy 3.65%, and again, I'm projecting a 0% levy. And that's 2 years in a row, and I'm not sure I ever remember that happening. So the difference between what we can levy and what we haven't levied, and you can see that in the middle, that's the savings to the community, what we haven't charged the community, even though we could have. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about the tax rate and the tax levy. They're not the same thing, and I know sometimes they get confused, and I just want to try to present that in a clear way, and please ask questions if there's something that is unclear. So the tax levy itself, we just went through that whole formula. That's the total amount of money that the school district, I'm talking about school taxes, that's the total amount of money that the school district asked the town to collect on its behalf. So that 111 million that we asked for last year, the current year, 21-22, and possibly the following year, 22-23. That's the tax levy. Tax rate is different. It's based on the tax levy, but it's not the actual tax levy. The tax rate is calculated by dividing the total assessed values of the district, but the tax levy by the total assessed values of the school district. So you add up the assessed value for every house, every homeowner in the district, divided by the total levy, and that's how you'll get a tax rate. And we do that for the businesses, and then we do it separately for the homeowners. So there are actually two tax rates within the school district. For the homeowners, the tax rate in the current year is $14.693, and that's for every $100 of assessed value. I don't want to get too far into that formula because that's kind of going down a rabbit trail. But that's how you calculate that. And the adjusted base proportions that I mentioned here is like I said, you calculate that tax rate for both homestead and non-homestead, homestead being the residents, non-homestead being the businesses within the school district. The information on how to adjust the levy and the assessed values to perform that calculation comes from the town in late August. So when we're talking about a budget now and a 0% tax levy increase, there's no way to even talk about a tax rate at this point because we simply don't have that information. And I'm going to show you in the next slide the other components of a tax rate and how your property taxes can change even if the tax levy doesn't change. So your school tax, I mentioned what the tax rate was before. You take the assessed value of your home, divide it by 100, and then multiply it by the tax rate. And that's all I'm going to talk about there. If anybody wants to go over that, I've sat down with residents with their tax bill to go over it, to show how it's calculated, to look at different exemptions. I'd be happy to do that with anybody who has a question. So can your property tax change if the levy remains the same? The simple answer to that is yes. The tax levy is not the only factor when it comes to your school taxes. The assessed values of your home is a big factor. Maybe you did some home improvements, the assessed value went up, maybe your house was reassessed for some reason, it went up, it went down. Even if the levy stays the same, that's going to change the taxes that a homeowner would pay on their house. They could also get exemptions. They could be a firefighter, disabled. We give the veterans credit here in this district. So that can impact what people pay on their taxes. There's that adjusted base proportion that I mentioned previously, the homeowner versus the businesses, and how the town decides to allocate the assessed values and the levy, and that changes every year. And again, we don't know that till August. There's also the STAR program that if somebody is not participating in, it's really in your best interest too. So any homeowner can participate in that if that's their primary residence. There are two programs in the STAR program. There is the traditional STAR program that if you're just taking the basic exemption, you sign up for once and it stays with you for as long as you're the homeowner of that house. That program is actually phased out. Nobody can sign up for that program anymore, but if you're in it, you can continue with it. They then introduced a STAR credit check program. And that, you can get more information on it. I have the link right there on the slide on where you can go. And your residents are allowed to sign up for that program. They qualify as long as their income is less than $500,000 for the household. The advantage of the STAR credit check, the new program, is that that rebate that you're going to get from the STAR program can change each year, can increase. It's going to change based on the levy of the school district. The STAR program, the traditional program, whatever exemption you're getting, it is not going to change. The traditional program actually lowers the taxes you pay. The second program, you'd pay the full tax, but then you'd get a check back. So it's a little bit different on how you achieve that savings on your taxes. But again, the traditional program is being phased out. You can only sign up now for that STAR credit check, and it's an advantage because it can increase each year. Property taxes overall, I was just talking about school taxes in previous slides, but overall property taxes include a lot more things than your school taxes. So let's say all of the factors on the left stay exactly the same, nothing changes, so your school tax doesn't change, but your county tax can change, your town tax can change. There's a fire district, an ambulance, the library, and there are many, many others. If you look on your tax bill, they're itemized there, so you can see what those other taxes are. So again, even if school tax doesn't change, your overall tax can change based on those other taxes within your overall bill.
Ms. O'Connor, can I just stop you right there? And can we just kind of like just dive into it just a little deeper, and maybe I can interpret, right, a little bit better, maybe in my mind. So the slide that we're looking at right now, it says, can property tax change if levy remains the same? So levy is the taxes that the school district is looking to capture from its residents. Last year, we proposed a 0 increase to that tax, right? Which means that it probably remained somewhere around that 111 number that you gave in the beginning of the slide, right? 111,568,000, roughly. So if you go to the slide, the first one has assessed value. And that's basically what happened, one of the factors that we had last year. Residential homes went through the roof, and the more value your home, the greater the proportion of tax that you're going to pay, because that's one of the factors that's built into figuring out how your taxes are assessed. The exemptions and the STAR program, I want to bundle those together. So you just set an example of exemptions. Veterans, firefighters, certain businesses are tax exempt, and those who qualify for the STAR program. I'm going to make a statement, and I believe that this is the way it works, if you can just verify that. The more exemptions we have, the more people utilizing and expanding into the STAR program. Doesn't mean that the levy is any less. It just means that those exemptions and those rebates through the STAR program have to be picked up by the remainder of the tax base. So the more exemptions, the more people that are filing for these exemptions, the more people who qualify for these STAR program rebates and credits, just shifts the burden over to the other taxpayers who may not be qualifying for these kinds of exemptions and programs. Is that correct?
Regardless of the number of people on the exemptions, the school district asked for 111 million, we're going to get the 111 million. How that's divided up amongst the homeowners, the businesses, that is out of our control.
Yep.
So we're still going to get the 111 million, and yes, if House A takes an exemption, House B, C, and D will probably have to pick up a little bit more of them.
That's a great example, and that I just wanted to bring out because there are so many factors in this, right? And I don't know if people understand that. I think that the best example that I could come up with was in Nassau County when they were having all those issues with tax grievances, right? People were winning these grievances, and the burden was shifted over to those who couldn't or didn't file exemptions or grievances or couldn't qualify for those grievances. So those things are out of the district's hands. And then the adjusted base proportion, right? If I wanted to interpret that is that proportion between homeowners and commercial properties. There's a formula that the town of Islip uses to figure out how it is that's shifted based on collecting the overall tax. I don't know what that is. I don't expect an explanation. But if more of the percentage gets shifted towards the residential properties and away from commercial properties, you may have, on any given year, commercial properties actually decrease and residential properties increase.
It did last year.
Is that a fair statement?
And it did.
The non-homestead.
Yeah, and that happened last year.
Right.
So you had the commercial properties actually decrease and the residential properties, homeowners, actually increase. And that's just a shift in the proportion, in the base proportion, right? So when we were asked about whether or not we were, forthcoming and truthful about actually keeping a 0%, the answer was absolutely. We kept it at 0%, but these are the factors that shifted that burden onto the residential homeowners. And it appeared, when you looked at the tax bill, you actually saw the school tax increase, but that wasn't because we increased the taxes. That was because of the factors that we're talking about right now.
Absolutely.
It's-
Our
it is
levy
up.
was exactly the same for the past the current year and the year before.
And will be
Exactly the same.
for next year, the 111 million.
Yes.
So that's the point that I was going to get to, Mr. Losher. Thank you very much. So we have had a 0% tax increase for last year. I mean, we're having it, we're doing it, I mean, we're doing the prior year, we're doing 2 years in a row. And to the point that Mr. Lochner just made, the fact that we're getting this additional foundation aid leads me to believe, and it's it's something that I said last year, if that happens again next year, you better believe that this board is going to be acting on a 0% again, because if we're getting all of this additional money, why should we burden the taxpayers with an increase in taxes when we have the money to do the expansion and do the work that we are committed to doing? I love the chart that you have in the page before,
Yeah, it's
in
great.
terms of the levy trend.
Right.
I mean, I know it's extra work, but that levy trend chart where it says, the arrow between community savings, that's into the millions. That's not 100,000 or so. Those are into the millions of dollars that we have saved the district by using this approach. So I love where we are. I love the fact that we just had a wonderful presentation by Ms. Palmer in terms of all of the expansion and all of the innovation that we are bringing to this district at a zero increase to the taxpayer. I mean, we are at $111,568,000 for 2 years in a row, and I'm telling you right now that, I mean, Mr. Lochner, I mean, I think we're all committed to this idea that we will have another zero if this funding comes through. We may have another zero regardless. I mean, I think that we are in a very, very strong financial position. And I want to just say to anybody out there, anybody in the community who has any questions in terms of why their school property tax increased when we said we were going to give zero, please take Ms. O'Connor up on the offer. She'll sit with you. She will tell you how it is that it affected you individually. But I just want to reiterate, we are holding the line in terms of increases in property taxes. This is what we've said we were going to do, and this is what we did. And I don't want anybody to think that, that there's anything different going on. If your property tax increased, it's not because the school district increased how much we're looking for each homeowner. It was based on all of these different factors that we just went over. So thank you so much, Ms. O'Connor, for entertaining this.
Quite welcome. And again, I really do mean it. If anybody wants to come in, just bring 2 consecutive years of tax bills, and we'll be able to identify exactly where they changed and why they changed. So we'll move on to state aid, and I just want to reiterate again, I know I've said it, this is based on the January governor's budget. The overall increase to education statewide, they were projecting $2.1 billion, or 7%. Long Island would get a share of that of $442 million, or 12%, which is a very healthy increase. But one thing we do see year after year, 12% is our typical number, but we have 16% of the student population on the island, from the state. So although it's healthy, it's really not our fair share here on Long Island. Foundation aid, which we had talked about several times in previous meetings, and what the board did to, over years, to get our fair share. So that's increasing statewide by $1.6 billion. Foundation aid is scheduled to be fully phased in over 3 years, so by 23-24, we're in the first year of the phase-in, 22-23 will be the second, and if it holds true, 23-24 we'll have our full state aid, foundation aid. The strategy to fill in this year, there were 2 scenarios that the state picked. Normally it's very complicated, this year is a little easier. Every district across the state got at least a minimum increase in foundation aid of 3%. So even if they were overfunded, they're still getting at least 3% in foundation aid. Or they're getting the phase-in factor, which is 50% of the positive difference between the full phase-in amount and what you're getting in the current school year, 21-22. So I put a little check mark there because that's where we fall in that phase-in category. We had talked over the years about how we were short around $130 million in foundation aid, and you could see it with the numbers that we're seeing, and that number fluctuates year after year, but it always stays around that amount because of attendance impacts it, our free and reduced price lunch, our ENL population. There are many things that impact that formula. But we're in that phase-in amount. So our first year phase-in, we got in the 30 millions, right, 35 million. This year, now we're looking at 50% of the difference. We're getting an increase of just over $50 million. So that would mean the following year, again, if the government if the state, I should say, continues to fully phase us in, we're doing another $50 million in the 23-24 school year. Some of the state aid highlights, again, not approved. There really wasn't much to say about the budget outside of that foundation aid because that was such a huge number. But what we've seen in the past few years is that the state wanted to combine services aid. That's about 10 categories of aid, the biggest being BOCES and transportation aid. Those are expense-based aids, and the more you spend with BOCES or the more you spend on transportation, you get back the following year in additional aid. If they combine that into services aid like they asked for years prior, that would stop the growth of those aids. So you'd get the increased costs in those areas, but you wouldn't get the corresponding aid. That's off the table this year. They're not even asking for that this year, which they have for several years now. There were really no other changes to any of the formula-based aids or any of the tax-related aids, so everything else pretty much stayed the same. What they did was they recognized the needs of school districts to hire people and how we're really having a tough time, not only school districts, across the state, across the country. So they introduced several initiatives to assist school districts to fill positions. Some of that was allowing retirees to come out of retirement and make more money than they have with no penalty to their pensions, so to continue collecting their pension. They're suggesting different pathways to certification to make that a little bit quicker for teachers or other positions to get certified, and then just speed the approval time because it takes a long time to get those certifications through the state. So again, those were just proposals from the governor. I don't know where that's going to land, but at least it shows the state is recognizing where we are and how we're struggling to get staff within the school district. This is just a state aid comparison of the governor's budget. I just show the 21-22 numbers compared to the 22-23 numbers, and that's our increase, 56 million. The one number on this chart, the second line down, universal pre-K, I have a note there, it's the special aid fund. That is not a revenue that comes to our general aid budget, our general fund budget. That's a separate grant, but they do include that on our state aid run, so I do have it here, so you can actually see those numbers on the state ed website, so they match. Debt service is something I want to talk about a little bit, because we do have a proposal that we're considering for the budget. Debt service is similar to the mortgage on your house. It's how you pay off what you owe on your house. It's how we pay off what we owe on the construction that we've been doing in previous years for many years. It usually stays with you for 15 years. I'm going to recommend that we prepay some of that. Like if you prepay the mortgage on your house, you lose the interest payments on what you prepay. So we can prepay some of this debt service with the increased money that we're getting from the state, and then we lose the principal payments and the interest payments moving forward. So it just makes sense to me. While we have the money, we're not sure what the state's going to do moving forward, if they can truly afford to give us another $50 million next year. So while we're in good shape, why not kind of contain some of our costs? It's a one-year payment, and it will not flow through to the following year because we'll pay it off. So I looked at with our fiscal advisor all of the debt that we have out there on our construction projects, and I know we've talked for years about our QZAP, Qualified Zone Academy bonds, Qualified School Construction bonds, and how we've had like 0.1% interest on some of our borrowings. I wouldn't touch that because that just makes no sense. I'd rather just pay the 0.1% interest on that. We're not going to get any bang for our buck by paying that off. But I was able to identify one borrowing, and that's our 2012 energy performance contract. We're paying 4.5% on that. So to me, that makes sense to pay that one off, and then we could save the interest. There's about 4 or 5 years left on it. So the debt service chart that I'm showing here is before paying anything off. We're not paying anything off here. So if we do decide to do that, and that's a decision we can make, you would see that drop significantly more. So just something to think about, a proposal that Mr. Lochner and I have talked about. Another proposal that we've talked about is something that we did this, the current school year, 21-22, we had a transfer to the capital fund of about 11 million, a little bit more than this. And that's how we're doing the turf fields, the locker rooms in the schools, some of the lockers in the schools, and many improvements throughout the district that you're starting to see now, and you will in the coming months. And we can do what we did in the previous year. You do all of that, and you're not increasing. We still came out with a 0% tax levy increase, and we can do that again this year. What are some of the projects we've identified are at the elementary schools. Do a security upgrade at the entrance. You may have heard it called a man trap, where somebody would walk into one set of doors in a building, get greeted by security who's separated from them, kind of in a booth or something. They show ID, they say why they're there, they have to drop off something, or their child's sick, they're picking up, whatever it may be. But you contain that person. They're not coming into the building until you buzz them into the building. So we could do that at our elementary schools. We're also focusing on cafeterias and the aesthetics of our cafeterias. They could really use a makeover. A lot of them have those 1x1 ceiling tiles, which we're trying to eliminate district-wide as we can, and do some other upgrades within the cafeterias. Middle schools, again, cafeterias, and renovate the science rooms. Get them up to speed so our kids can truly start the science curriculum that Ms. Palmer and Ms. Ortiz had talked about in their presentations. And then the high school, we're looking at cafeterias. We have a lot of other work going on at the schools, but these are some of the projects that we've identified. The total amount for those projects is $10.8 million. Again, a one-time expenditure. It hits your budget once, and then it's not there. And we could do those projects with a tax levy. We talked about the $111 million, wouldn't change, still $111 million. And also that debt service chart that I just showed you with the downward trajectory. That wouldn't be touched either. That would not change. So we could do that at $0 to both the levy and the debt service. So those are some considerations, that we'd like to talk about. And then what's next in our budget development process? It's April 7th. We're here. We're doing the final budget presentation. April 14th is our formal business meeting for the board, and that's where the budget will be adopted. We're at the end of the budget season because we have to get out all of our mailings and hit the, what really ends it is the property tax report card that we have to file with the state, and that's a few days after the 14th. Then we'll mail our budget newsletter. May 5th is our formal budget hearing, which we're required to have every year, and then May 17th is our budget vote. Any questions on that?
No, thank you so much. I would just round of applause because, I thank you, Ms. O'Connor, because, I've said this throughout the years. I think that we are indebted to you as a district, as a community, for your stewardship. Everything that I heard makes all the sense in the world to me. I mean, I love the fact that we are, looking at debt service as a way to increase our cash flow, our positive cash flow. I mean, so we're paying down debt, decreasing the interest expense, but at the same time, we've just reversed the tide on that. The building aid in terms of the transfer to capital fund, I think is just, again, wonderful, because we are improving the district at zero cost to the taxpayer. But what's great about this is, the caveat about this is that we're going to get building aid, we're going to get a positive cash flow from New York State, because these projects, at a cost of about $10,800,000, is going to net us, what's the percentage more or
About
less?
85% back in
Around-
building aid over 15 years.
So that 10.8 is really only costing us 15%, because over the next 15 years, you said?
Yeah, once we close out projects.
When we close out these projects, we will get this money back. So you talk about, great times for the district. I just can't, imagine, I couldn't have imagined, I don't think any of us could have imagined where we would be right now. These are just.
If I can just add to that, even if we prepay the debt service on the 2012 energy performance
Yes.
contract, we still get the aid.
We're still getting aid,
Building
and-
aid still continues to flow.
Yeah, and that's what I understood in terms of increasing the positive cash flow. So we've decreased the interest expense, but we're still getting aid on it. The interest would have eaten up part of the aid that we would have gotten. Now it's a net 100% of the building aid. I mean, that's just wonderful. Even if it's only 4%, but it's still 4% on millions of dollars, right? I thoroughly understood where it is that you were going with this. I like what we're doing with the transfer to capital fund. We did it last year. It makes all the sense in the world, again, for all of the reasons that I highlighted. And I just wanted to point out that I don't think that we're even giving ourselves, you're not even giving yourself the credit to explain that we're capturing 85% over the course of these, these projects, the years that it'll take us to get these projects. It's 15% out of pocket.
It should also be noted, Mr. Feliciano, that, many years ago, I met with the board a number of times. I don't know if you guys remember, but we actually talked about going out to the community with a bond. And at that time, we were speaking about possibly anywhere from $60 million to $100 million. And that actually was a typical number if you go through to other school districts across Long Island. Many of them went out to their communities asking for a bond to do many of these upgrades. For example, the turf fields. If you see our neighboring towns with turf fields and new stadiums, for example, they went out to their communities and asked for bonds. And many of the other improvements, the boilers, which we've improved, roof, windows, the cement that we've been putting in, the new curbs and sidewalks. And now we're also doing, upgrades to parking lots, which are critical. And many of you, I know, have gone to the elementary and middle schools, and they're in, really need of repair. We're doing all of that. Typically, school districts would have to go out for incredibly large bond and, get that voted on by the community at a cost to the community over a period of time. This, we have been able to do tremendous amount of construction and improvements to this community, zero cost to the taxpayer. So it is really remarkable.
Yeah, and I don't know how we can emphasize that more. I mean, it really is great, because to the point that some of the board members were making, this isn't just about, capital improvements. This is also the academic improvements that we're making to the district.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a good balance of what it is that we're trying to bring forth. The stuff that we could see just makes us feel better, It adds to the positivity that Ms. Palmer was talking about earlier, the fact that we're coming into buildings And the ceiling and the lighting and all that stuff has been repaired. The lockers look better, the floors are renewed. It's just, it's really, really, really wonderful times for the district. So I'm going to tell you that personally, I mean, I love the presentation. I like the direction that we're heading in. You know, it's about rebuilding the district, but also rebuilding it in a way that's fiscally responsible. And that's what the board is charged with. And I think that what you presented today does exactly that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Any questions?
I would actually like to thank Ms. O'Connor and actually Eric Harlan. You know, just as I said about the other cabinet members, I mean, she, you know, takes this extremely seriously and guards every dollar, you know, as if it was her own, and really has done a remarkable job over the years getting us to this point. You know, it's a big deal. You've mentioned it a few times, Mr. Feliciano, but we are going to pay off this energy performance contract 4 to 5 years in advance. That's like remarkable. That is really remarkable. And it is a one-time expenditure. So if it is upwards of $8 million, next year, that actually gives us $8 million more in our budget, you know, next year, if you look at it that way, which is, again, the future is, you know, really bright because some of the moves, you know, that she's making. So it's really, really tremendous job.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. O'Connor, thank you very much. Another round of applause.
And you've left Andy speechless.
No
questions, Andy?
Oh, wait for the next to start.
Without further ado, I would like to ask for an adjournment of tonight's meeting.
Just, you have to April 13th, next week.
That's right. Due to a couple of issues, we are going to change the board meeting from Thursday, April 14th to Wednesday, April 13th. Same time. And there are a whole bunch of reasons, but this is what we're going to do and make the announcement tonight. Mr. Lotion will send something out tomorrow so that the community knows. So we will be meeting on Wednesday the 13th and not Thursday the 14th.
If you could also explain May 3rd to May 2nd as well.
Mr. Lotion, absolutely.
Yes, I do have to apologize. We actually went out in error, and I take full responsibility for this. We actually thought Eid al-Fitr was on May 3rd. We actually did simple math, and that was not correct. We subtracted 10 days. The year before, it was May 13th. We subtracted 3 days, and we came up with May 3rd. I was schooled this week by a number of people who explained that it doesn't always work out evenly. It doesn't always work out to 10 days, and I really appreciate everybody who helped me. Yes, I was, unfortunately. So, actually, Eid al-Fitr is the last day of Ramadan, which goes from April 2nd to May 2nd. So we had to switch to get it right. We didn't want to get it wrong and stay with it, so we're changing it. So May 3rd now is a school day, where it was a day off. That was a Tuesday. Now May 2nd, which is a Monday, that is the day off, okay, to celebrate Eid al-Fitr. And I've sent something out to the staff already, and my intention is to send something out to the school community, sometime tomorrow or over the weekend, as well as a voice message.
Great reminder. Thank you so much. So now, without further ado, if I could have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. Motion by Trustee Gonzalez-Prescott. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Moore. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Have a wonderful night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.